In the annals of Utah sports glory, there is nothing to match the winning of 2 national basketball championships over the span of 4 years. But that's exactly what the Runnin Utes of the University of Utah did in 1944 and 1947. There is a lot to talk about in regard to those 2 championships, but let's begin by talking about our coach. Vadal Peterson was head coach at the University of Utah for 26 seasons, 1927 to 1953. No college basketball coach in the state has served longer. Peterson also holds the distinction of winning the most games of any college basketball coach in Utah history. His win-loss record stands at 384 to 224, with a total winning percentage of .631. He was the first basketball coach in America to win both the NCAA and the NIT tournaments. In 1950, he was elected president of the National Basketball Association, and he was also named to the Helms and the National Basketball Halls of Fame. And now for the details of his 2 national titles. In 1944, his Utah team was composed of a half-dozen freshmen who didn't even have a home gym to practice in. That was because during World War II, the Army had appropriated the Ute Field House, so the Utes had to practice in a church gym. Nevertheless, these kids, fresh out of high school, were called from New York and told that the NIT needed an 8th team to compete in their post-season tournament. Coach Vadal Peterson was happy to be number 8. It was a giant leap from the church gym to Madison Square Garden. So he took his kids to the 1944 NIT tournament. As one might expect, the Utes were eliminated in the first game by the Kentucky Wildcats, 46 to 38. As they were sadly packing up to go home, they were called by NCAA officials in Kansas City and invited to replace an Arkansas team that had been involved in a serious automobile accident. So the Utes filled in for Arkansas in the Western Regionals of the NCAA tournament and won 2 games there. The first was against Missouri, 45 to 36, and the second against Iowa State, 40 to 31. Wow! That sent the Utes right back to Madison Square Garden, where, as champions of the West Regionals, they were matched up with Dartmouth, champions of the East Regionals. Now, who was going to win the NCAA title, Dartmouth or Utah? Dartmouth was heavily favored to win, and at halftime they were ahead by 1 point. But at the end, Utah prevailed in a 42-40 overtime thriller, and Arnie Ferrin was named the outstanding player of the tournament. After becoming the NCAA champs, the popular Utes were invited to remain in New York for another game. As winners of the NCAA, they were asked to play in a Red Cross benefit game against St. John's, who had just won the NIT title. The press called Utah the Cinderella Kids and billed Utah versus St. John's as the battle for the undisputed title of basketball champion of the United States. Utah then became the undisputed champion of it all by beating St. John's 43-36. So in 1944, a team loaded with freshmen from the University of Utah won the NCAA title and defeated the champs of the NIT. Here is a rare picture of the Utah champs of 1944 taken from the Utonian, the University of Utah annual. Top row, left to right, Coach Vadel Peterson. Next is number 29, Fred Sheffield, captain of the team. Third is Herb Wilkinson, number 28. He made the winning shot against Dartmouth for the championship of the NC2A game. Next is number 22, Arnold Ferrin. He was named the most valuable player of the NCAA tournament and the last significant contributor in this picture is the third member on the second row, number 21, Wat Masaka. In 1945 and 46, Ferrin and Masaka served in the military, but they came back in 1947. This time, they met newcomer Vern Gardner and others. The team of 1947 was invited to the NIT tournament once again, but the press referred to them as wartime wonders, and they rated them no higher than 6th in the field. The Utes responded by winning their first game against Duquesne, 45-44, and their second against West Virginia, 64-62. Even so, when pitted against Kentucky for the title of the NIT, the smart money of the East favored Kentucky by 12 points. The Kentucky Wildcats were 3 deep at each position. The Utes were only 5 strong and used only one substitute, named Lyman Clark. As previously noted, in 1944, 19-year-old freshman Arnie Ferrin led Utah to the NC2A title game against Dartmouth. In that game, Utah prevailed 42-40 in overtime. Ferrin was named Outstanding Player of the Game. In 1947, the Farron-led Utes captured the NIT title by defeating Adolph Rupp's celebrated Kentucky Wildcats. In the build-up to the NIT title game, the press gave Utah no chance to defeat Adolph Rupp's famous Fabulous Five. Kentucky's All-American captain, Alex Groza, would lead the Wildcats to national championships in 1948 and 1949, but not in 1947. When he, that is, Alex Groza, matched up with Utah's center, Vern Gardner, it was Gardner who won the title of the NIT's most valuable player. In scoring, Gardner made 15 points to Groza's 12. And in rebounding, Gardner was visibly much better. Kentucky's high-scoring, unstoppable All-American guard was Ralph Beard. He was 5 foot 10 inches tall. Later, he would win a gold medal as a member of a U.S. Olympic basketball team. He would also play professionally. But in the NIT title game, Beard would be matched up with Utah's guard, Wat Masaka. Masaka was only 5 feet 7 inches tall, and he wore a size 7 shoe. Masaka would only score 2 points in the game, but he held high-scoring Ralph Beard to a single point. Kentucky's power forward, Jim Line, would be named All-American in 1949. In 47 against Utah, he scored 12 points. But Utah's forward, Arnie Farron, would score 15. The final score in the NIT championship game of 1947 was Utah 49, Kentucky 45. And now let's fast forward to a small Utah town called Mount Pleasant. It was March 26, 1947, and students were assembling for our 8 o'clock class in our seminary building. I took 2 close buddies aside and told them the Utah Utes defeated the Kentucky Wildcats for the national title on March 24th, and the champs were scheduled to arrive at the Salt Lake City airport in 2.5 hours. I told them I was going to hitchhike to Salt Lake to meet the Utes when they arrived. They both agreed to go with me, so we walked out of our classroom, went to the front of our high school, and stuck our thumbs out. Up rolled a big 1.5-ton flatbed truck. It stopped, and 2 men in it asked us where we were going. We told them where and why. They told us they were headed for Salt Lake, and they invited us to jump up on the back of the truck. We did so, and we were happily on our way. Our destination was about 100 miles north, and to cope with the cold March wind, We buried our heads in our jackets and zipped them up tight. I am certain that the kind gentleman in the truck had no intention of taking the circuitous route of the Salt Lake Airport for their own trip to the city, but for us, they went directly to the airport and dropped us off in time to see the Utah team disembark from their flight. We were part of the festivities at the airport, where 5,000 of us saw the University of Utah Convertible Club furnish each team member with a convertible decked out in red and white with his name on it. And leading this parade downtown was Vern Gardner, the NIT's most valuable player. Vern was seated astride Big Dan, the city's largest fire engine. Utah was celebrating more than the NIT victory that day. 1947 was Utah's centennial year. So, according to the Salt Lake Tribune, people were lined up 10 deep along the streets of the city. Governor Herbert B. Ma addressed the rally in the central city, as did Mayor Earl J. Glade and officials from the university. A goodly portion of the crowd then moved to Kingsbury Hall on the university campus for another rally and an address by A. Ray Olpen, president of Utah University. At this juncture, we began to think about food and a ride back to Mount Pleasant. A financial inventory revealed we had 15 cents for dinner for 3. We bought a loaf of bread and divided it amongst us. We had plenty of delicious water that bubbled up continuously from the many drinking fountains along the streets of the central city. We were fortunate to hitch a ride home rather easily, but there were challenges at NS High upon our return. I made my relationship with school authorities worse when I told them I would do it again. To make an unpleasant story short, I found a new high school in Salt Lake City for my senior year. But my personal participation in the NIT victory celebration is peripheral to the story of the Utah basketball team. And here they are, from left to right. Wat Masaka, guard. Fred Widener, guard. Arnold Farron, forward. Vern Gardner, center. And Leon Watson, forward. Beautiful kids and golden memories. Wat Masaka would play 3 games for the New York Knicks and get cut from the team. He would return home and earn a degree in electrical engineering from the University of Utah. Thereafter, he would work in Salt Lake City as an electrical engineer. Guard Fred Widener would work in the Utah trucking industry. Four-time All-American Arnie Ferrin would go on to play for the Minneapolis Lakers. After his professional career, he would become general manager of the Utah Stars of the American Basketball Association. And from 1976 to 1985, he would serve as athletic director at the University of Utah. Vern Gardner would play for 3 seasons for the Philadelphia Warriors. He would then become a coach and a teacher, first at his alma mater, Star Valley High in Wyoming, and then at Bonneville High in Ogden, Utah. Utah's forward, Leon Watson, would become a pharmacist at Dixie Drugs in his native St. George, Utah. And now, with your indulgence, I would like to say a few words about my family ties to the university. My father earned his BA at the University of Utah, became a teacher, and after additional graduate work at the U, became superintendent of schools of the North Sanpete School District. He later earned his MA at Claremont College in California and became the first principal of the new Dana Middle School in Arcadia, California. My sister and I spent our freshman years at the University of Utah. She became a successful broker in real estate, and I earned my BA and MA at Cal State LA, and my doctorate at UCLA. I spent 61 years in the field of education, serving as a high school teacher, a community college professor, and as a community college administrator. I have fond memories of my freshman year at Utah. I am especially grateful for my experience as a sports reporter on the Daily Utah Chronicle, where I had the privilege of writing the story about the retirement of Vern Gardner's jersey with his famous number 33. And there were many great memories associated with the Pi Kappa Alpha fraternity as well. I am 93 now, and proud to say I am an alumnus of the University of Utah. Thank you for the privilege of your time.